Hello my beautiful watchers and welcome back to Lost in Adaptation, the show dedicated to comparing movies to the books they were supposedly based on. So, a supernatural teen romance novel. Not what I would have picked, but my patrons pay good money for this stuff and they wait so very patiently for their requests, so let's do this. Blood and Chocolate. Blood and Chocolate was written in 1997 by Annette Curtis Klaus and tells the tale of the life and struggles of a teenage girl looking for friendship, fun and love while simultaneously dealing with being the latest generation in a long line of secret werewolves. This book serves as a reminder that while Twilight was certainly the most successful of the supernatural romance story craze, it wasn't the start of it by a long shot. The film adaptation was made in 2007 and also has werewolves in it. The irony is not lost on me that, after introducing the in-name only clause, I then didn't get to use it again for almost 2 years, but now it seems like it's coming up almost every other episode. However, yeah, this film has fuck all in common with the book, so following my usual format would be pointless. Instead, I'm going to have to present a review of both versions of the story separately and let their complete lack of overlap speak for itself. Let's do this thing. The book starts with the protagonist, 16-year-old werewolf Vivian Gandilan, the surname is a reference to an old French tale about werewolves, trying to adapt to life in her new home in a new city, a year after her father and several other friends burned to death in a fire. Apparently, several young members of her pack had attacked and killed humans in the nearby town. Unable to prove anything supernatural, the townsfolk had fallen back on good old-fashioned arson and destroyed the inn the pack ran just outside of town with several of their people inside it. Vivian is having to deal with being pressured by her mother and her former best friends, a group of lads referred to as the Five, to pick a werewolf mate, while simultaneously worrying about having no friends and not fitting in with anyone at school. Her mother Esme and a rather unpleasant werewolf woman by the name of Astrid are competing for the affections of a much younger man in his 20s named Gabriel. For his part, he seems intent on making Vivian his mate and never misses an opportunity to hit on her or slip in a bad touch whenever they're in the same room. Sexual harassment is a huge part of this book. Vivian's ex-childhood boyfriend and the de facto leader of the Five, a guy named Rafe, is the worst for it. He full-on gropes her boobs and casually threatens to rape her if she doesn't sleep with him willingly. Most of the time, said harassment is presented as being a bad thing, but make a note of the fact that Gabriel is really into it as well, because that's gonna come back at the end. Anyway, a wolf-themed drawing of Vivian's is selected to be in a school paper, and she notices that a poem on the same page seems to have a greater understanding of what it is to be a werewolf. Intrigued by this, she tracks down the author, and upon discovering that he's a gorgeous young man with a fixation on the occult named Aiden, she falls instantly in love with him. She starts dating him over the repeated objections of her pack who feel she should stick with her own kind, and through him she finally starts making friends with other humans her age. During all this, her werewolf group is dealing with a power vacuum as her late father used to be the former pack leader, and they're yet to decide on a new one. Most bets are on Gabriel despite his young age, but people like Astrid and the Five are constantly defying authority by doing things like running as a pack through human-populated areas to scare the shit out of people. They eventually agree that the leader will be chosen the old-fashioned way. All the males will fight until a victor arises, and then all the females will fight to see who his mate will be. A few of the women, including Astrid, point out that this is somewhat sexist and want to be given the opportunity to fight to be leader as well. When the time comes, she actually gets her wish, though Gabriel goes out of his way to knock her out early. He goes on to win, and, annoyed at missing her chance, Astrid vents her emotions by surprise attacking and trying to kill Esme. Vivian instinctively defends her mother, and even goes as far as to bite out one of Astrid's eyes. As soon as the fight's over, she realizes she's accidentally won the battle to become Gabriel's mate and runs off. Overwhelmed with teenage lovey love, she decides that he has to know the truth about her, and as he's super into the idea of the supernatural, she assumes that he will be overjoyed at finding out that he's dating a werewolf. Unfortunately, this assumption is incorrect. Aiden shits his pants and freaks the fuck out when she transforms in front of him, and she gets so upset she loses control over her wolf form. She jumps through his window and wakes up back at her place the next day with the taste of human blood in her her mouth. She's horrified to discover that a human in town has been killed via being torn to shreds. Believing herself guilty, she keeps her head down while the pack investigates, but also goes full stalker on Aiden, who's trying his best to avoid her. After she semi-kidnaps him, he confesses he just can't handle the truth about her and they need to go their separate ways. She tries to get him back by making him jealous, but that backfires when she sees that he started dating one of his Cassie friends and warned all of their mutual friends to stay away from her by saying that he broke up with her because she's a violent, jealous psychopath. She drowns her sorrows in booze that was given to her by Wraith in what appears to be a rare moment of kindness, and while plastered, decides to prove that she's not a violent, jealous psychopath by breaking into Aiden's new girlfriend's bedroom and trashing the place. She once again wakes up in her bedroom after blacking out and finds the severed hand of a biker who once tried to molest her in a bar. When she's back from hiding the evidence, a friend of Aiden's turns up and tries to give her a note from him telling her to meet him at a secluded spot. Now convinced that she's a bloodthirsty killer, she refuses to take it and decides she needs to commit suicide to protect her pack. As the only things that will kill a werewolf are silver, fire, and a broken neck, she douses herself in gasoline, but is stopped just in time by Astrid's son, who tells her that he witnessed his mother and Rafe commit the murders and try to frame her for them. He also tells her that she's just killed Aiden's friend, found the note, and is on her way to murder him too. Vivian rushes to the meeting spot and gets there just before Astrid, but it seems that Aiden has concluded that she must be the serial killer and arranged the meeting to shoot her with some silver bullets he made. Instead of doing the intelligent thing and just letting that happen, Astrid jumps out and reveals that it's herself and her teen lover Rafe, that are the real killers and that they intend to finish both of them off as well. As you can probably imagine, telling that to someone who's already proven they can take you in a fight and to a guy armed with a gun was not the smartest move in the world. Aiden shoots Rafe dead and Vivian beats up Astrid. The rest of the pack turns up and Gabriel executes Astrid for her crimes. Aiden freaks out and accidentally shoots Vivian before being chased off with threats of death if he tells anyone about this. Vivian survives, but for some reason ends up stuck in a form halfway between human and wolf. No one can break her out of it for weeks until Gabriel shows up in the middle of the night. He tells her that he too once fell in love with a human, and when she found out what he really was, she also freaked out and he ended up accidentally killing her. He tells Vivian that he finds her attractive no matter what form she's in. His moral support gives her the power to turn back and forth again. She realizes that a human like Aiden could never really love her and decides to give Gabriel a chance after all. You remember me mentioning how he did nothing but harass her and treat her like shit the entire book? Yeah, it ends with them getting together. I know that seems like quite a short summary. A huge part of this book was just social stuff with Vivian, you know, dates with Aiden, movie nights with her new friends, that sort of thing. What I described was all the plotted fancy stuff. Now, I very much doubt I'm going to surprise anyone with this review. Big shock, the 30-year-old man didn't enjoy the teen romance novel. The hypersexualization of the teenagers alone was enough to make me distinctly uncomfortable. Though it might go a bit beyond just not being the target audience here. There's some things in this book that just can't be excused by anything. When I was reading it, I couldn't help but interpret everyone harassing her not to date a human as a rather obvious allegory for mid-20th century open prejudice against race mixing. The male werewolves in her pack feel entitled to her simply because they're the same species, and offended by the idea that she would give him something she wouldn't give them. This impression might have been influenced by the fact that similar books like True Blood lean into this allegory much more blatantly. I mean, I'm not sure, I certainly hope so, because if this is a metaphor for racism and the main character realizes that she really is better off with a member of her own kind at the end, then that means that on the subject of race mixing, this author falls on the side of segregation. Holy fuck. Even putting aside the hopefully accidental white supremacy, I'm not comfortable with Vivian giving Gabriel a chance at the end. People told me this book was a love triangle, but she has no positive feelings for anyone other than Aiden until the last page of the book. That's not a triangle, that's a case of bad rebound. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't rooting for her to end up with the hipster human boy, even if he did learn his lesson at the end, because it's a personal philosophy of mine that one should never date anyone who's ever put a bullet in you, but that doesn't mean I thought the 16-year-old high school student should settle for the 24-year-old violent biker who constantly touched her without consent, and it's not 100% proven didn't have casual sex with her mother. The fuck is up with that shit? Another big problem with this book is just how unlikable the lead is. Right at the start, she decides that the reason that she doesn't have any female friends must be because they're also super jealous of her stunning beauty and giant boobs. Then, pretty much constantly throughout the book, she vainly admires how awesome she looks in various outfits. I know I've complained in the past about heroes being annoyingly naive about people's attraction to them, but ye gods, this opposite extreme is not the solution. I suspect this character was supposed to represent what the teen readers wish they could be, rather than be a surrogate for them to believe that they are, which possibly explains why this novel never gained the same sort of following as later books whose authors figured out that there's nothing people love more than a blank slate that they can project themselves onto. This book is not subtle about future plot twists. It's like, hey babe, you want to come look at my parents' basement? It's full of equipment my dad uses for making his own bullets. He even taught me how, even though I didn't want to. Oh, and by the way, here's a silver pendant I bought you. I hope you like it. Gosh, I wonder if any of that information is going to come back later. At one point in this story, Vivian, while in human form, drinks some of Aiden's bathwater because she loves him so much she wants to taste him. I know this is supposed to be a reference to canine behaviour, but still, ew! Looking for positives to talk about for the sake of fairness, I guess it's competently written. I mean, Klaus has a decent grasp of story structure and narrative, and her understanding of the teenage psyche isn't out of keeping from what I remember from being that age. Even if you don't like them, you understand why the lead does some of the incredibly stupid things that she does, so I guess that's something. I was pleased to see that this book didn't come with any judgy teen chastity overtones. Vivian doesn't end up having sex with anyone during the course of the story, but that's not by design, and the idea isn't presented as anything to be ashamed of. It's also implied that Aiden was planning to practice safe sex, so that's at least one positive message. I was also moderately impressed with how well she portrayed the damaging effects it can have on a young person when a parent stops acting like a parent and starts acting even less mature than them. Oh, and by the way, if you were wondering about the title, it's a reference to the last metaphor of the book, where the lead compares the way that Aiden and Gabriel kiss and the kind of love that they offer her. Aiden was sweet but fleeting like chocolate, and Gabriel was passionate and intense like blood, I guess. To the target audience of this book, I would say that if you desperately need an angsty teen fix, I'd recommend it over the alternative, but for the love of the gods, please take its messages with a whole heap of salt. Everyone else don't even think about picking up this book. I will come to your home, slap it right out of your hands, and then raid your fridge before leaving. Right, let's take a look at that film then. The film starts with a group of men arriving at an isolated cabin in America and gunning down child Vivian's parents and setting their dogs on her. Just before they can catch her, she's saved by an admittedly pretty cool transition. Jumping forward in time, Vivian looks about 20 now and is living in Romania. She was relocated there after her parents' death to live with her aunt Astrid. Yes, you heard me. It's much safer for her kind there because apparently the city is ruled by a werewolf crime syndicate headed by the dreaded Gabriel. Apparently werewolves have controlled this entire area in secret for 5,000 years and make sure no other criminals move into the area by immediately kidnapping any rivals, dragging them out into the woods, then having the entire pack hunt them for sport. They're told that if they can get across a certain river they're allowed to live, but no one ever makes it. Vivian spends her days working in a chocolate shop and her nights drinking in a cool, edgy underground nightclub. You can tell how super off-grid it is because you've got to flip a switch to get in. Hardcore. She sees Rafe, Astrid's son, strike out with a woman in a red dress. Yes, apparently not only is Astrid Vivian's aunt now, Rafe is her son, so I guess that makes them cousins. Actually, I don't have to fucking guess.
Don't give up, cousin. I think she likes you.
We're in luck, gents. My cousin deigns to honour us with her presence.
My cousin, you know you will.
Oh, come on now, cousin. Caution with my cousin, Nate.
Now, cousin, why wouldn't I?
We get it. We get what their relationship is. Rafe is a creepy dick to her, so Vivian ditches the club and goes to her second favourite hangout, a cathedral with pictures of werewolves all over the windows. Good job ruling in secret there, geniuses. Her solitude is interrupted by a graphic novel artist named Aiden, who is apparently a werewolf enthusiast. She shows a small passing interest in one of his drawings, but does not otherwise do anything that would suggest that he should attempt to pursue a romantic relationship with her in any way, up to and including refusing to tell him her name. Meanwhile, the girl from the club is being stalked by a bunch of mischievous acrobats, and one has to assume she's had a traumatic run-in with gymnasts in the past because this causes her to completely lose her shit and run away. Vivian stops her in order to tell her to keep running away. Helpful. Turns out it's cousin Rafe and his cronies messing around with humans for fun. Vivian tells them to stop being dickheads before heading home. When she gets there, a must-be-in-his-30s at least Gabriel is waiting for her. He reminisces about warning her father that it would be a dumb move to relocate his family to the US, and mentions that he thinks that she might be the girl from the prophecy. Yeah, there's a prophecy now, and like all the best plot convenience prophecies, it's never established exactly what it says, means, or who the fuck made it. Into to the Hall of Fame with you, movie. Vivian tells him that he's a dick for leaving Astrid and to go away. Meanwhile, it seems that Rafe was even more butthurt about being rejected than anyone realised because he tracks the girl to her hotel room and transforms into a wolf to murder her. The next day, Vivian is out making a delivery for the chocolate store she works for. Aiden happens to spot her and calls out, "Hey, wolf girl!" which doesn't make any fucking sense because he was the one going on and on about wolves, not her, but whatever, this movie's dumb. She runs off and, I kid you not, he chases her through the city. Look, arsehole, just because you're handsome as fuck and smile in a charmingly bemused way doesn't mean what you're doing isn't immensely creepy. She's forced to scale a building to escape him, which of course he doesn't take as a hint because he tracks her down to her place of work and turns up there unannounced and uninvited. Is this guy's surname Grey by any chance? Ah, he dipped his finger in her chocolate. Dude, that's a fucking restaurant. Now she has to start making it all over again. I hate this guy so much. He ignores her repeated and direct requests to leave her alone and stop asking her out until she's forced to agree in order to get him out of the shop because she sees Rafe coming and doesn't want him to get into a fight. Gabriel surprises Rafe at work to interrogate him about the murdered girl. Apparently he's his biological father, but warns him he won't protect him if he's endangering the pack. Vivian meets up with Aiden for their date and apparently has decided that his constant invasion of privacy and personal space is charming now. Their date seems to involve nothing except walking and talking. Eventually, I assume Vivian got bored of this because she talks Aiden into breaking into a private art collection full of wolf-themed stuff. Again, the secret part of ruling in secret seems to be lost on these people. She mentions she has a very strained relationship with her family, and he says he totes gets it because his crazy ex-military father insisted on raising him to be a super commando until he eventually snapped, beat him up, and fled the country. I'm not even kidding, this guy's backstory involves him being an unwillingly highly trained killing machine. This guy. Moving on, it seems the pack have been keeping tabs on her during the walkie date, and Rafe tries to scare Aiden off, mentioning that it was apparently Vivian's fault that her family got gunned down because she accidentally led the gunman back to their home. I'm not entirely sure how wolf tracks leading to house equals let's murder all the humans living there in cold blood, but then again, I grew up in England, maybe that's standard behaviour for American hunters. This prompts Vivian to revert back to her let's keep away from each other for your safety attitude and ditches Aiden. Unsatisfied with this, Rafe snitches to Gabriel about her dating a human, exaggerating how much she's revealing to him about her wolfiness. Gabriel orders Rafe to chase Aiden out of the city, and to this end he sends him a fake letter from Vivian saying to meet her at a chapel filled with bones. I don't know, maybe it's a Romanian thing. Shockingly, threatening Aiden only results in a macho standoff and then a fistfight. When Rafe finds out that Aiden is not a pushover, he decides, fuck it, I'll just kill him, and transforms into a wolf. Now, I can't speak for anyone else, but it was around this point in the story that I expected the heroine of the movie to show up and save him, but no, apparently she's still at home crying about her feelings. Luckily for Aiden, he apparently has just the right sort of bling to wipe the smile off a werewolf's face, and decides that the best way to employ it is to throw them both off a balcony. I've given up questioning this man's decisions at this point. This successfully offs Rafe, so Aiden goes to confront Vivian about being a werewolf, berating her for agreeing to date him in the first place and not staying away from him for his own safety. Conveniently forgetting that she spent the first half of the fucking film doing exactly that and physically trying to escape from him. Ugh, this guy. Don't think I didn't notice that you're Prince Char from Ella Enchanted, buddy. You're quickly becoming the kiss of death for adaptations. Anyway, after proving that he is completely and utterly oblivious to even the smallest sense of irony, Aiden decides to skip town. On the way out, he half-inches some silver cutlery. He doesn't make it far though, as it turns out Gabriel owns the police force. To no one but Vivian's distress, he gets dragged out into the woods for a good old pack hunt. It turns out he really wasn't making up being raised as Rambo because he does much better than all previous runners, killing 2 wolves with his silver butter knife and making it across the river. Gabriel decides, fuck the rules, I'ma eat this guy anyway, forcing Vivian to transform into a wolf to defend him, forcing Gabby into the water. Being the colossal dunderhead that he is, Aiden misinterprets her fighting off the wolf that was about to kill him as an act of aggression and slashes her with silver. She turns back into a human before he can finish the job, he realizes his error, and they escape the woods together. I'd love to say that that was the end to this garbage, but the film goes on for another 20 bloody minutes. I, however, cannot take any more of this, so I'm just gonna have to super summarize. They hide from the pack, Astrid finds them but decides to let them go because she loves Vivian so much. They visit a creepy chemist who is the antidote to silver poisoning, along with a bunch of other wolf-related stuff like silver bullets. They're found and Vivian gets captured, so Aiden steals all the chemist's stuff and goes to rescue her. Gabriel makes more vague references to a prophecy that Vivian's a part of, there's a big fight, Vivian kills Gabriel and escapes the city with Aiden in Gabriel's car because apparently werewolves can't see through glass windows. goes. Fuck me, this film was a mess in every single way. Its plot was all over the place and full of holes, the acting was lackluster, and the effects were embarrassing to say the least. Oh, and obviously as an adaptation, it's unrecognisable. I have to admit, I never would have guessed that this film was directed by a woman. Everything about it screams misogyny to me, from the glorified stalking to the supporting male character being given a bigger, more badass role than the female lead. Gabriel in particular is fucked over to the extreme in this. Wait, should I have been pronouncing that Gabrielle? Oh well, too late to turn back now. While I wasn't best pleased that Vivian ended up with the Cradle Snatcher in the book, I still don't like that they took someone who was genuinely trying to do his best to do well by the pack and protect the humans around him and turned him into some sort of honourless criminal warlord who liked to take part in blood sports. And who do they decide to make into a sympathetic character instead? Astrid. Astrid of all people, the main antagonist of the novel? Why? You know Vivian actually had an aunt in the book, right? I didn't mention her in the review because she didn't do anything important, but she was there. Why would you take the villain and make her the lead's new parent? That feels like an intentional slap to the face of book fans. Also, BTW, making her Wraith's mother was especially weird considering they were fucking in the book. Accents were a bit weird in this too. Despite having two Romanian parents and only having spent a few years in America as a child, Vivian appears to have retained the accent like she just this second stepped off a plane from California. Even if you can let that go, someone from the casting department of this film needs to explain to me how a woman with a German accent and a man with a French accent ended up with a son with a British accent. Actually, fuck accents altogether, why the fuck is everyone speaking English in Romania? Garner appears to have an intense, unwavering fascination with jumping. The film's cinematography and score constantly tries to present Vivian and others making little hops off things as the most magical thing in the world. It's also apparently the scariest thing imaginable if it's going on above you, and you would not believe how long she dragged out and lingered on the shots of people leaping to transform. I'm willing to bet there's a secret locked room in her house that's just full of trampolines. Speaking of transforming, the second I saw that they changed via lens flare, I knew they definitely weren't going to be doing the bit at the end of the book where she got stuck halfway, because then she'd just look like some sort of glowing angel for the rest of the film. Also, I noticed the werewolf's clothing disappeared when they transformed and doesn't come back when they turn back, so I guess they just go through a lot of pants. The movie kind of looked like it wanted to gender flip the maiden in distress trope like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but wasn't quite brave enough to follow through on it, so they made the male love interest a ranger ninja guy so he could hold his own without his girlfriend. Tiny point I know, but it kind of annoys me that this film appears to not know how bullets work because they seem to believe you need to make the casings out of silver as well. The Dom's final thoughts. This was a no shits given adaptation. There's no trace of the book in the film aside from the title and the names of the characters. And I suppose the message that it's important not to take no for an answer when it comes to dating because eventually it will pay off. I'm so glad that's the thing that transcended the medium. I am almost certain they just wanted to draw in fans of the book to boost ticket sales and banked on already having their money by the time they discovered they'd been had. I made it clear that I don't think this is a very good book, and I stand by that, but still, it deserved better than this. Hey beautiful watchers, I just wanted to give you a quick reminder that there's a variety of rewards you can earn by becoming a Patreon, including early access to all videos, getting to be a part of the survey about how many people saw the film and read the book, or playing Minecraft with me on my 24-hour server. Higher level contributors can also join the Dom's Skype chat room and best of all, choose future episodes of Lost in Adaptation. However, if right now you are thinking, my goodness the Dom, I can't do that, I've developed such an addiction for fine world cheeses I've not a penny to spare for anything else. Fear not, if you would instead be willing to like, share, subscribe, or a combination of all three, that goes a long way towards helping my channel grow and reach new beautiful watchers. Have a most pleasant day, and I will see you soon.